So let me welcome you, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be with you today again, and a welcome to our series of top use cases, how to supercharge your business with artificial intelligence and machine learning. Our fourth webinar today is about personalized customer experience. And I have with me David, who is going to lead today's webinar. We will, at the end, we will have a couple of things. One will be call to action, and then I'll invite you to our next webinar. And we will also have Q&A, the ability, chance to ask questions to our experts. I should also have with me and welcome Ellie and Camilla from our Databricks partner company. I will start with a very, very brief introduction, and then I'll hand over to David. So at DataSentics, we have 100 plus data scientists and data science engineers. And we are grouped into 5 tribes: fintech, which will be today's part, and then in retail, tech scale, innovate, and at picker. Our success wouldn't be real without our cloud partners such as Microsoft Azure, AWS, and our lead partner Databricks that I mentioned already. And without any further ado, I will just forward to the slide where we have Databricks and their financial services expertise and experiences with use cases around. This is just to summarize that these were the use cases, or are the use cases to supercharge your business. Today's is personalized experience, and later on will come the next one. Let me hand over to David. Thank you very much. Enjoy the webinar. David, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David, and I'm actually a tribe leader for the financial and financial industry. Basically, it means retail banks and insurers. And today I would like to basically walk you through our, let's say, use cases we are doing for these companies. But let me maybe start a little bit with the broader picture and the, let's say, motivation, what drives these companies to actually innovate in this area. So as you can see, companies like Netflix, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all these like companies, they are basically delivering a very personalized experience for their customers. And what is actually happening in the market, that the customers in general these days expect much personalized approach from the brands, and this is let's say becoming a status quo. But there's a little bit trick in terms of the FSI companies, because the FSI companies, the banks and insurers, it's not that easy for them to create, let's say, omnichannel, very nice personalized experience. Not from the fact that they would not be as good as the mentioned companies, but simply from the fact that their services is much more complex, that their products are much more complicated. So we can basically wrap it up by saying the business complexity of these, let's say, more traditional companies is much higher. And for them to connect all the data about the customer, it requires much bigger efforts. And probably many of you who are working in these companies or been working with them as a suppliers, many of you probably know it, that it's quite tough to actually drive some change. So what we are basically helping our customers is exactly that. We are helping those customers actually drive the change and create a personalized experience. So how to actually achieve this personalized experience? First of all, you need, let's say, the classical customer data. They are typically stored in data warehouse. in CRMs, and it's data like product history, contact history, profile of the customer, like name, address, and etc. And those data are quite static over time. They are very well structured in the data warehouses or CRM systems, and that's, let's say, the status quo for many companies. But the trick is that the important information for better customer experience, it's actually not in this data. The fact that I am calling the call center and I am arguing about the fees, or the fact that I'm struggling with the claims resolution, this is actually not easy to be found. It's actually not in this data. So for that, you need to basically focus on much broader picture. So as you can see, this is what we are helping our companies with. We are focusing on helping them utilize the data from digital channels that are exactly signaling the customer satisfaction, that they are dealing with some problem with the products, or in life they are trying to get a new financial product to solve their need of I don't know, buying a new home, and all this digital data and unstructured data, this is where all the interesting information are actually hidden. But there is like a catch to it, yeah. And the catch is that all this data are quite dynamic over time. They change a lot. There is a lot of uncertainty in the data. For example, in digital world, you are not working with customer IDs. You are working with user device IDs, yeah, which there is like a one-to-one relation. There is not like a one-to-one relation. Yeah. So for that, you have to work with the data in a quite different way compared to, for example, the classical data warehouse processes. Another important difference is that those data are quite often under control of the business people, not the IT or not the data managers. So this is, again, important thing to mention. So the quality of the data at source, it's much more dynamic and it's changing over time. And last but not least, all these data are enormous. The sizing is much bigger, and it doesn't make sense to put everything into data warehouse, simply from the fact that typical digital data, it's a lot of nested data where people clicked on your website. It's hundreds and thousands of different rows for every single interaction, which is happening in mobile ads, mobile apps, website, and so on. On the other hand, the unstructured data, such as call transcripts of the people who are calling your call center, they are trying to get help with a product, or they are trying to get a new product. All these transcripts of the call, they are often stored somewhere just for a legal, let's say, auditability purposes. But you can use all this data to actually learn something about the customers. Same applies for the inbound emails. People who are writing to your support center, chat queries, all the same things. So how to actually approach this let's say situation? You would like to use all this different data to somehow bring a better experience to your customers, improve the customer satisfaction, hopefully, and basically treat your customers in a more personalized way. So just to maybe to help you, let's say, sneak peek into the detail. This is, for example, the data from website, or from internet banking behavior, or from mobile app behavior. So basically, as I mentioned, a lot of different rows as the user is browsing through the mobile app. These data are often grabbed from the tools like Google Analytics or Firebase, and then for example, another data source is online advertising data, and here you can see that there are systems that helps you programmatically buy advertisement across the entire internet, and from these tools you can again grab the individual data where particular user was exposed to your ads, on which pages, when, what device he was using, and so on. So again, it gives you a little bit of fresh information about your customers. Another interesting data source, especially in the insurance, is external price comparison websites, because the insurance market is heavily competitive, and the price comparison websites, or you can call it like price aggregators, they are playing a key role in comparing the prices. And again, this is pretty much programmatical based. So if user comes to the website, the price comparison website basically asks all the different brands to return the quote for the particular user. And from that, you can again have a lot of interesting data about the customers, how they are quoting, and so on. Another data source, especially for banks, is like a transactional data. So of course, banks are very good at leveraging the transactional data in terms of like calculating the risk models and how many or how much they can how much money they can lend to the customers. But in terms of like segmenting the customers, understanding who the customers are, how they are behaving, and most importantly, what are their needs, it's often not the case. So here we are approaching this data that we have developed our, let's say, AI engine that enriches this classical transactional data with all the things about the customer. What are their interests? What are their life stages? Whether they recently start to pay for a I don't know, like a gas to their cars, and they started to commute to work by a car, and so on. So there is a lot of interesting things you can basically learn about your customers. And on the other hand, for insurance companies, there are like claims, and claims is often the source of interesting unstructured data. So every single claim has to be, and in most companies, it's very free text built. So the companies are actually let's say providing some form where the person who is creating the claim, they are describing what happened and how the incident actually happened, and they are describing this. And they are basically, the customers are producing a lot of unstructured text. So again, you can use NLP models to grab and basically somehow derive the information about the customers, such as the topics, such as keywords, such as sentiment of the customer, or even things like how big the claim will probably be. Yeah? If there are words like small stone hit my car, then you can probably already at this stage can determine that it's probably going to be lower cost. On the other hand, if the model is catching things like multiple cars, imaged at once, then the costs will be probably much more bigger. Last but not least, the data source is actually the call transcripts and inbound email messages I mentioned. All these data that are in the CRM systems, where let's say the branch advisors or the branch staff, when they are meeting the customer, they are taking some notes how the meeting went, what the customer was interested about, and this is very unstructured, and often it's very different user by user. So again, it's a very good use case to actually use some NLP models to let's say derive some kind of topics, keywords, and sentiment from this. And same applies for the chat queries and chat conversation with the customers. It's typically conversations about like a, let's say, service type of conversations, like where do I find this, or how can I help you with that. So that's, let's say, the last typical data source we are working with. So now let's imagine we have all this data about the customers, including the classical data warehouse data in one place. And theoretically, we could be, if we look at, let's say, the customer base, we could be able to reconstruct the life and the journey of the one particular customer. So without the digital and unstructured data, we would probably see something like this: that the classical customer journey would be that I was offered some product, I purchased it, then I was upsold, I called call center, then I refused some offer. But it kind of doesn't explain why. Yeah, so I don't know why I actually did this. So once we plug in once we plug in the unstructured and digital data, give us much better understanding why the customer is behaving in that way, and we can much better predict what the customer will need soon, whether he is satisfied, whether he is leaving us, whether he wants to upgrade and change the settings of the products and so on. So it can be things like we call it often like interests. So it's like very soft things about the customer. So things like he likes skiing, he likes to travel, he is considering some product, he is comparing some products. But on the other hand, it can be more like long-term characteristic of the customer. We call it like some persona traits. Whether he is like young and sporty, whether he is high income, and whether he is like satisfied in general, whether he is having some life situation coming in, like having a baby and so on. So this is, let's say, the end game. But this is not scalable. So in order to scale it, we help our customers to actually build a solution that enables you to calculate all this for every single customer individually. So for that, we follow this pattern. That first, we create a 360 customer data model, connecting all this data, preprocessing them using the NLP methods or more basic data transformation methods. And we preprocess them and we put them into one huge customer 360 data model. Not view, but really data model. And then we connect selected data from the classical data warehouse, typically things like the product history and these things. And you can, for example, see here are like a demonstration that how it looks from the, let's say, data science or data analytical perspective. So here in the, let's say, in this UI, you can easily see all these hundreds and hundreds of different characteristics of the customer. You can imagine it as a one huge table where every single row is a customer and every single column is a characteristic of the customer. And as you can see, we have like out of the box, we have like more than 378 pre-built attributes that we basically based on our know-how, we know that these are important attributes for the FSI. So we can bring this and accelerate your project. And but it doesn't end there. Your internal people can easily contribute, build more and more attributes in that way, and it basically kickstart them because they don't need to figure out all the small things, how to transform the data, how the tables should be organized, how to productionalize it, and so on. All these things we basically solve, so we can like accelerate our customers by this. And at the end of the day, the end game is something like this. So the way how we are trying to, in general, help banks and insurers by different AI use cases is basically evolving around this pattern. So on the left side, we have unstructured data and digital data, and the mentioned transactional data that like around the claim descriptions and etc. And we basically put them into one customer 360 data model, and on top of it, we have something we call like the feature store, so actual features of the every single customer. So here it's like the mentioned 1,695 AI segments. So it's like every single attribute. Of course, there are a lot of different windows. So that's the difference between the number I mentioned previously and the 378 different information about the customer, which technically is nearly 1,700 different attributes. And to actually not end there, because we saw that often the customers they were let's say struggling to change the business process based on this, to improve the business process. So we went even further. We created an application on top of this, and this application serves like business people who can easily interact with this huge segmentation. They can do some quick exploration of the data. They can compare, for example, specific segments to each other, and the application will easily show them the biggest differences. They can learn insights very quickly. So it's often positioned as a complementary to Power BI and Tableau visualization tools. Underneath of that, everything is built around Databricks in cloud of your choosing. And in Databricks, we have basically developed a way how you should develop more machine learning models on top of this. So it's very standardized way how you should train the model, how you should evaluate them, how you should log them, how you should release them into production, and etc. To basically guide you through the entire productionization steps. And all this has to be monetized somehow. So therefore, we have the use cases on the right side. So that's the personalization. It's one of the biggest topic in banks these days. So to use all this new information about the customer, it enables you to do much more sophisticated omnichannel campaigns. From digital advertising through CRM marketing, even up to the classical let's say one-to-one interaction with your specialist and so on. Another topic is typically evolving around the fraud and risk models, because all those new data, they are bringing additional information, and it's a very nice way how to enrich the fraud and risk processes just by adding additional features into the existing models. So often we are like helping customers adopt this into their existing models. And last but not least, this topic of proactive retention. It's a topic of a proactive retention, and it's very important for insurance companies to basically be very proactive before the renewal cycle, because as you probably know, insurance companies every year most of the insurance products are ending, so they have to be renewed. So that's, let's say, the major overview. And to give you a little bit of zoom in into this, here you can see a list of all these characteristics that we are typically, we can help you basically calculate, and you can build more and more using the same approach. So it's things like the interests, things like digital behavior, things like digital devices, whether I'm like using like these iPhones or some old smartphones, transactional behavior, or things like favorite merchants, whether I prefer specific brands while purchasing some goods. And other things like life stage and lifestyles, it's very connected to the financial needs of the individuals. So it's again very important to calculate this. Another thing is geographical behavior. Again, people who are commuting to work daily, people who are withdrawing in different places, they are, going to countryside in the weekends and so on. And last but not least, the campaign interaction itself. So as you can see, this all is quite hard to manage. Of course, from the data perspective, Databricks is very good platform to manage all this, but it has to be connected to the business, and business people, the Databricks is not like it's too complicated for them. Yeah, the business people need very simple, simplified things to operate, because they don't have time often to dig deep. So we created this application that is running on top of Databricks. It's basically just reading the data, and it helps the business to organize all these attributes into different categories, and basically enable the entire company to look at the one place where all these segments are. Moreover, it allows you to quickly compare the different group of customers. So, for example, you can quickly select people who recently churned, and you can easily see what is different about them. And you can see that they were much more browsing specific website, specific page on your website, and you can imagine, that's maybe they were searching for some terms and conditions. So maybe let's create some proactive retention campaigns. And by this, we basically spark the idea to create more and more data-driven processes in the company. As a, let's say, last step, this application allows you to define which data has to be exported to where. So typically some marketing automation tools or databases and say CRMs itself. So this helps the business users define the export, and then the Databricks underneath that execute the actual data manipulation. So to wrap up, this is our solution. And here you can see typical use cases of it. So this is where it actually brings value. So this is, let's say, the core of today's session. So as you can see, one key use case is the omnichannel communication. So as I mentioned, in FSI, it's much more complicated than, for example, in medium-sized e-commerce players. In FSI, you have to comply with all the regulatory stuff, all the security, all the governance processes. So for that, you really need this, let's say, big systematic approach I was explaining. That's the only way how to connect the digital and unstructured data with the classical data and create a, let's say, true customer 360 data and customer 360 profile. Another part is digital marketing attribution. Again, you can attribute the digital marketing spend not by contribution to digital sales, but contribution to actual offline sales, because a lot of the journeys are starting online, but they are finished by a call center or at branch. So you don't have to be siloed in digital only and, let's say, offline only. You have to connect these two worlds. So again, typical solution we are working with. Another one is digital advertising optimization. So again, this same principle helps you find the right websites where to place your ads, and websites where not to place your ads. And another use case from a slightly different area, customer service and CRM. It's like a chat monitoring tool. So again, to actually manage the inflow and inbound of the chat messages, as the companies are moving more and more to chat rather than email, this is becoming a bigger topic. Then we have like a couple other cases like churn prevention, website personalization, categorization and interest engines, and of course things like enriching the actually branch operations. So you would like to, for example, if you come to the branch, your advisor should probably see your preferences based on your behavior across all the different channels. These days, it's often not the case. Yeah, so maybe to, let's say, before we jump to Q&A, I would maybe, because we are doing quite good on time, I would maybe zoom into particular use case. So let's start with the 361. So this use case was actually about helping the mentioned bank, Česká spořitelna, largest bank in the one of the largest bank in the CE region in Europe, and we were trying to help them leverage new data sources to actually educate and find new people who could start investing, because to start investing, it's not a trivial thing. It's not an easy decision, and the customers need to be somehow educated, and they need to build trust in basically themselves, and it requires it requires time and education. So we used this approach to create to find the different personas of the new investors. So we analyzed like different type of customers who start to invest. We come up with three key personas representing the typical customers who started to invest. Then we use this to personalize the experience across the banking apps. And last but not least, for those who engaged, we personalized even the online ads. The provider of the data was the Persona 360 Solution, which was powering the marketing and automation tools that orchestrated this. So as you can see, the results was pretty good. It's I would say no surprise, because if you compare it with the traditional campaigns where you just send to customers, hey, start invest, it's great, no one cares. But if it's like a much more complex communication scenario, like hey, let's start small, yeah, maybe in a couple of years it will become more interesting for you, but there is no time delaying the decision to start investing. You can start small. For people who are just in a life stage, they are, for example, young and so on. So it was like trying to educate the people in that way. So that was like the first use case. Another use case is the mentioned marketing attribution 360. So here the biggest added value is to actually measure the so-called ROPO effect, ROPO effect. Yeah, basically the effect of I'm researching something online, but then I'm finishing the sales via call center, via distribution network, and so on. So we developed again on top of Persona, we developed this let's say solution to attribute the impact on the conversion itself for every single channel, and not just the digital ones, but also the other ones. Yeah. So it revealed that, as you can see here, like the ROPO effect was quite dramatic, and it turned upside down the perspective, let's say how the digital marketing was perceived in the company. So they kind of reimagined their digital acquisition strategy, and they focused much more on like awareness and just like opening up the discussion, and then the other channels refocused much more to actually finishing the sales. Another use case mentioned digital advertising optimization. It's a nice topic these days, as the third-party cookies are actually dying. So this is a very good way how to prepare for this change of the advertising industry. So again, what we are doing, based on the connected data, we are not trying to find the exact customers who should be exposed to ads, and actually in terms of acquisition, they are not in a data set. But from the existing customers, you can easily learn what are the specific pages they are visiting before actually having some financial need, like buying a car, buying a house, and so on. So we just learn the pages that are more likely to be visited by these people. And on the other hand, we learn the pages that are less likely to be visited by these people. And then we create basically this huge media plan with everything on a granularity, where every single page has some kind of score, whether it's a good place to show the ads to the new prospects or not. And this huge file then gets put into the advertising tools, and it basically optimizes the campaign performance. Another use case was let's say, enriching the fraud processes. So here you can see that the idea is that you take all this new information about the customer, and you try just to enrich the existing process, because to replace the process, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's a core process of a bank. Why replace something which is kind of working, right? Because if it wouldn't be working, the bank wouldn't exist, or the insurer. Yeah, so somehow it works, but it can be improved. And the way how to improve is exactly through this additional data. And as you can see, we often use the existing models. We connect additional data to it. We train a new model on top of the entire data set, and then we deploy it as a complementary process in parallel to the existing process, and it nicely enriches the existing process without disrupting it. So we are doing it this for UK insurer, the biggest digital insurer in UK. We are doing it for more than for basically last year. We went through the robust implementation of this, and it yielded nice business results in decreasing the false positives and detecting new fraud cases while not changing the capacity of the investigators team. Another use case is predicting errors or stuck customers. So this is linked to the chat monitoring. So often you want to detect not just the recurring topics. It's often not changing that much. Yeah, that people are complaining about this. They are stuck. They are often stuck at this. But what is interesting are the topic or the chat queries or the messages that you cannot categorize easily by some algorithm, which means they are new, and it's often linked to some problem, to some outage, to some issues that are happening. So we kind of created this solution again from Portal, and the idea is pretty straightforward. Yeah, you want to quicker detect that something is broken, and there will be like masses of customers calling soon, because currently it's just 50 customers calling us, but in 2 hours it will be 5,000 customers and we will be completely overwhelmed. So you want to detect this before it actually happens. Another interesting use case could be using the unstructured data. In this case, we used call transcripts, and you can use the call transcripts to actually detect a specific keywords and topics, and then you can correlate it with a likelihood to churn. So you can use these topics as a predictors for the churn, and again, nicely enriches the classical churn models that are already in place in some SAS or tools like that. Another topic can be routing the emails, and it's again heavily evolving around the NLP. So the case is that you have a specialized teams in the support center. Someone specializes in claims, someone specialized in acquisition, someone specialized in handling the complaints, and so on, different products. Yeah. So you want to, if there is some inquiry coming in, so you want to basically very fast route it to the right team and save the customer some time to calling through and getting put through all the different agents before he actually reaches the one who can actually help him. So that's this use case. Another one can be the insights for the branch advisors. So this one is quite interesting, because once you have all this huge segmentation in place, often the customers use it just for the marketing communication, but it has much bigger value for the company. It can be used also for advising, for, let's say, giving more inputs for the physical people who are trying to advise your customers, who are trying to help your customers with some problems. So if these people are empowered or like are augmented by all these interesting insights, what the customer was doing across all the different channels, whether he was calling in call center and he's very angry lately, if the advisor can easily look it up in CRM. Here we have an example of Microsoft Dynamics, how we integrated it. So if the advisor can easily look it up, it can give him interesting, let's say, some better. It can help him prepare for the meeting with the customer. And the idea behind is that from all those thousands of attributes, you are just showing those that are characteristic to this particular customer, because the other ones that are generally present for all other customers, it's not interesting. But those things that are characteristic for the particular customer, this is the stuff. Last use case is around website personalization. So once you have all this huge segmentation, then you can basically ask the data, hey, tell me what is different for customers who are dropping at some kind of sales funnel. Yeah, they go on a website and they, for example, drop from a particular step of the funnel. And the reasons why they are dropping, they are often attached to what do you know about the customers. So you can easily take the people who dropped off, learn what is different about these people compared to people who did not drop off, basically went through further on and successfully purchased the product. And once you have these two groups, you can then learn the differences between those two groups. And those differences are then very nice, giving you a nice picture. But often it's a lot of things, and the customers are dropping out from many different reasons. So you want to go even further, and you want to clusterize the different customers to find out that people who are like young, living with a partner, and they are interested in makeup and these kind of stuff, they are much more likely to drop off. So maybe you will have a different action to the other type of customers who are like married people without children, most the men that are like buying occasionally. You want to retain them in a different scenario. So you basically just clusterize the people that way. Then you can set up, let's say, some nice retention activities to keep them engaged. So that's, let's say, the brief walkthrough through all the use cases. And then, let's say, the question is like how big this all this is. Yeah. So of course, like we typically work in the long term with the customers, because here we are not talking about some quick wins, like in terms of like yeah, you just do one use case and your business will fly forever. It's not like that. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you otherwise. But the thing is, how to approach this is let's say our philosophy that we always start small. We identify the biggest potential use case where you can bring the biggest value with the least efforts, and then we do some pilot use case to basically learn about each other. Basically try to understand your company, what teams you have internally, and basically figure out the modus operandi. And in this pilot, we want to prove the business added value. And for that, we can give you like a free trial of Persona 360, which dramatically saves the initial investment. If you would like to build all this from scratch, like yeah, maybe you think it's not that big work, but we did it many times, and we know it's thousands and thousands of man days. Yeah, so yeah, for those who already know it's complicated, we are here, and we are happy to, let's say, share, let's say, a free trial of the Persona 360, and then we can help you with the, let's say, pilot use case. It's typically 30 to 50k euro project with a proven business case, and when it works, then we can move to, let's say, business as usual model, where we can you can typically implement more and more use cases across different parts of your business, and you can land our solution. What is interesting here that the solution is fully transparent. So it's a subscription, but it's not software as a service in terms of like some black box solutions. Everything is running in your infrastructure at the client side, and the client has option to take over the entire IP for a one-off fee, which greatly prevents the vendor lock-in, and it's something that differentiates our philosophy. And we believe this is extremely important for companies like retail banks and insurers, because they need to retain this intellectual property close to them rather than outsource it to third-party software as a service. So yeah, so that's basically it. So thanks a lot for for being here, and I hope it helped you see, it basically inspired you maybe a little bit. So if you would like to anytime discuss challenges you see for yourself, if you are in bank or insurance company, or if you are somehow helping these companies, they're happy to jump on a call, discuss our experience, figure out some projects together, and basically accelerate your AI and personalization projects.
Thanks, David. We have a few questions that we'd like to answer, and so you can have a browse through those. I have prepared one ahead, and I think one you already answered. So the one was, how do the banks, given the sort of implementations that we have gone through already, several ones, so how do the banks actually address the GDPR? That was my sort of question. And I think Lucas has asked a similar question. How will you get the allowance to use all the data about the customer and getting the persona?
Yeah.
And I think linked to that is if the banks are willing to upload customer data into the cloud platform.
Yeah, so thanks for this question. It's often the question we are facing like every day. Yeah, so the answer is following. Of course, we are building it in the cloud platform of the customer, which means the data belongs to the customer. So he's not outsourcing anything to us, and let's say the GDPR compliance has to be handled on a, let's say, as a part of the process that is originating the data. So, for example, if I'm collecting the data about website behavior, the website has to have some consent management system in place, so it's not tracking people who are not opt-in, for example. So we then work only with the data that we are consent, we have a consent to work with, and connect them with other sources. So this is, let's say, of course, like it's not like a straightforward topic. Every company has its own stance. Some companies are more conservative, so they are working on a very strict consents. Some companies are much more, let's say, aggressive. They have the boundaries slightly different. Yeah, so they are working with the data under slightly different consent logic, but the consent management itself, it's part of the company, and we are just following it and using the data that the company is actually collecting already, because all the data from the unstructured data sources like the emails I mentioned, the call center transcripts, the website behavior data, mobile app behavior data, all these data are somehow stored in a business. They are somehow already used for some, let's say, transactional purpose, and it's just about changing the consent policies, and this has to be done on the level of companies. And every single client of ours, they are more or less technically the same, but at the end of the day, it's slightly different for each of them. And then I see the question regarding the cloud platform. So these days, I think all the banks and insurers, they are starting with the cloud at least. Some of them are much more progressed, and they are working with the cloud for many years already, like 3-4 years. And like 3 years ago, my answer would be yes, it's still a topic. There has to be a lot of security assessments and a lot of encrypting on the data and so on. This was very much a new thing 3 years back, but these days the market shifted dramatically, and it's really not a problem to get the approvals to manage the data in a, for example, Azure Cloud or AWS. Companies are pushing to clouds many different things, not just the data. Yeah. Even we see a lot of different business processes being built in the cloud platforms. Yeah, so I don't think it's a big problem these days anymore.
Okay, then we have obstacles in building personas when working with clients, the preparation and ML classification technique. So this might be from a question from Adastra, I think.
Yeah, hi Michal. Yeah, so what are the key obstacles in building such personas when working with clients? Yeah, so I think if this was related to the website personalization, for example, so let's say the biggest obstacle is to of course get the data into one place, which is something we can accelerate rapidly by our solution. On the other hand, then the biggest obstacle is actually the business people. They need to adopt a different way of thinking about it. Yeah, they used to be doing it for many years, like, hey, we have this product, let's sell it to these people because these people are most often buying it. Yeah, but they are buying it because we are keep offering the product to them. So it's like a definition by circle. So to break this, let's say, paradigm, it's the biggest obstacle. Yeah, they need to change the mindset. So it's a lot of explaining the reverted approach to data. Yeah? You have a business program, people are dropping off at this particular funnel. Let's learn from the data. What could be the reason? Let's do not speculate. Let's do not create any hypothesis. Let's learn from the data. The data will tell us what is different about these people, and then we can speculate because we have some facts. So to change this mindset, this is the biggest obstacle these days. And I would say that's it. Then another question: what classification techniques we are using for creating personas? So yeah, it really depends on a particular case. For many cases, you are fine by using, let's say, simple methods like regression models, just to learn the factors that are characteristic for the people, and then you can use clustering methods to separate the groups of people. For some cases, you can use more sophisticated things like XGBoost models and so on. And if we are, for example, building next best action models, so for a couple of customers, we are using even like neural networks and really deep learning techniques. So it always depends like how much you want to invest in the method itself. Yeah, because of course, yeah, often it's case like with very simple method, I can achieve 80% of the impact. Yeah, and after that I can improve it. So often we are not like dwelling about using the most complicated and most fancy method always. Yeah. So it's about actually using a common sense.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks, David. And I think I'll move on to call to action. So one action point is if you would like to have a look at how to migrate some of the data that is on premises to the cloud, or if you would like to consider a pilot for the personalized experience that David was talking about nearly 1 hour today, send us an email or connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'll be able to help you with that. And then the final one is don't forget to join us for our last one this year. We will also introduce another few topics that will come for next year, but that will be only as a surprise topic during our next webinar, which will be just before Christmas on the 15th of December. Usual time, 2 p.m. CET. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone again for your attendance, for listening to a great topic. and one of the use cases to supercharge your business. With that, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, David, again for sharing with us all the insights, and wish you a pleasant rest of the day and the rest of the week.
Thanks a lot, and enjoy the day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye for now.